To help my bankrupt girlfriend pay off her debts, I took on various odd jobs at school, scrimping and saving, handing over every penny I earned to her. Until one day, while hiding in an empty classroom munching on a steamed bun, I accidentally discovered a post on the campus forum titled, "How much did the pooper scooper earn today?" The poster turned out to be my girlfriend's childhood friend. That's when I realized my girlfriend's family wasn't bankrupt after all. I was just a pawn in the rich people's game. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. Looking at the post I accidentally clicked on, I couldn't stop trembling. The post contained numerous photos of me being secretly photographed while doing various jobs. There were shots from different angles, and the photographers were different people. Each photo was followed by a number, indicating the payment I received. The comments below each photo were filled with malice. So what if you're the top student? You're still being played by the rich. I love watching this high and mighty flower fall from grace. I scrolled up and finally saw the first photo. The caption read, "Toilet security guard, campus pooper scooper, you deserve it." 3 months ago, my girlfriend Loretta Simpson's family went bankrupt. To earn more money, I also looked for part-time jobs on campus, and my first task was to help fix a toilet in a dormitory. In the photo, the toilet was spraying water everywhere, and I was awkwardly squatting on the ground trying to block the outlet. After cleaning up, I was drenched, but I didn't feel bitter at all, tightly clutching the $300 in my hand. At that time, Loretta had not a penny to her name, and when she saw that $300, she was so excited she nearly cried. "Isaiah, what would I do without you? All those friends avoid me like the plague, but you're so foolish." My heart ached for her, and I vowed to earn more money for her in the future. Later, I found out that the person who asked me to fix the toilet was none other than Loretta's childhood friend, Alex Lawrence. The angle of the photo was clearly taken by Alex. Since then, I earned a new nickname in the post, Pooper Scooper. Soon, I clicked into his homepage where the first post read, "My friend lost a dare, pretending to be bankrupt to tame a top student." The accompanying image was of Loretta tilting her head back to drink. Underneath this post were all the tasks Alex was assigning. Alex was known as a rich second-generation kid at school, while I was merely a good student living on financial aid. When he spoke, everyone naturally responded, and fueled by curiosity, the number of posts continued to grow. Catching cockroaches, exterminating rats, cleaning toilets, helping wash socks and underwear. These were all the jobs I had to take on. I struggled to swallow the steamed bun when I noticed the post had been updated. Someone had just taken a sneaky photo of me eating the bun outside the classroom. "The pooper scooper eats like a pig. So disgusting." In the photo, I was straining to swallow the bun. I stiffly lifted my head, only to see a retreating figure. By the time I chased outside, the person had already left. Returning to my desk, I received a new message from Loretta. "Baby, I'm having dinner. Don't forget to eat well too." Below it was a photo of a white steamed bun. Loretta's family went bankrupt about half a month after we got together, owing a significant amount of money. Her parents took her younger brother and fled abroad. She had to juggle 2 jobs while dealing with debt collectors. My heart ached for her, so I always tried to save money on my meals to secretly order takeout for her. I would hesitate for ages over whether to buy 50-cent pickled vegetables. I thought those meals would be a comfort for her in her weary life. But in the post, I discovered that she had been giving that food to stray cats and dogs. "This lousy food isn't even good enough for my dog. Only they'll come running for it." In my memory, she was not like this at all. For the first time, I didn't reply to Loretta's message. Putting my phone away, I tossed the leftover half of the steamed bun into the trash and refused the next task of washing socks. I headed straight to where Loretta worked. Calculating the time, she should be working as a waitress at a friend's bar right now. At first, I worried about her safety and wanted to persuade her to find another job. But when she looked at me with reddened eyes, choking back tears, she said, "You know, my family owes too much money. This job pays well. I have no way out." My heart ached. Originally, after the experiment, I would have received a sum of money and could have taken on more jobs to help her lighten the load. Now it seemed unnecessary. When I arrived at the bar, I asked a waitress for news about Loretta. Although I already knew the answer, I still couldn't help but hold on to hope. Loretta Simpson? Ms. Simpson? Are you crazy? She's the boss. How could she be a waitress? The waitress looked at me suspiciously and then rolled her eyes. You must be new here. Why are you so young and already thinking of relying on a rich guy? You haven't graduated yet, right? You really don't want to work even a single shift. Saying this, she handed me her tray. Room 204. That's when I realized I was dressed all in black and the dim lighting made her mistake me for a new waitress. I found room 204, and as soon as I opened the door, I accurately spotted Loretta. She sat among everyone like a star surrounded by the moon, adorned with jewelry that perfectly matched her outfit, showing no signs of bankruptcy at all. The wine she casually picked up was worth 5 years of an ordinary person's salary. Meanwhile, my hands and body were covered in scars, old and new, rough and painful. For her, I had no personal time whatsoever. I always thought if I could just get through this, it would be fine, but I didn't realize it was a bottomless pit. The tiny glimmer of hope in my heart was completely extinguished. Lost in thought, I didn't notice someone pushing me from behind, and I stumbled into the private room, just in time to see Alex Lawrence beside her holding a wine glass. Come on. Come on. The winner tonight gets to use the poop scooping rights. A chorus of voices around him echoed in agreement, while Loretta Simpson just smiled without saying a word. Isaiah Clarke probably doesn't know that the little money he makes can't even buy a single diamond on our young lady's manicure. What do poor people know? They can't just force someone to rob a bank, right? This comment sparked a wave of murmurs. Speaking of which, we haven't played this yet. How about? A few people had already started planning, not noticing me who had unexpectedly walked in. However, what if Isaiah Clarke does something extreme when he finds out? Even a rabbit will bite when cornered. I didn't know who suddenly raised the question. Hearing this, Loretta Simpson scoffed. Too bad. Isaiah Clarke isn't a rabbit. He's just a dog by my side. After she said that, laughter erupted in the room. Our young lady truly lives up to her title. I tightened my grip on the tray, as if someone were covering my mouth and nose, gradually suffocating me. By the way, Miss Simpson and Isaiah Clarke have been together for quite a while, and that kid is quite good-looking. Miss Simpson wouldn't have any other thoughts, would she? Loretta Simpson's expression darkened, her brows instinctively furrowing as if disgusted. The people nearby immediately laughed it off, smoothing things over. You're overthinking it. The Simpson family and the Lawrence family have been linked by marriage for a long time, just waiting for the two to graduate and get married. They've known each other since childhood and have a good relationship. Exactly what does it matter how handsome he is? He smells of poverty. He's still being played like a dog by us. These past few months, having Isaiah Clarke as a toy has made life less boring. I gritted my teeth, suppressing the urge to fight back. Once outside the private room, I sprinted back to school. The wind whistled past my ears, and my mind was blank. I didn't know how long I had been running. The number of people around me decreased, and the streets became narrower. I finally could no longer hold on and collapsed onto the ground, sweat mingling with tears falling down. I couldn't understand how people could be so wicked. Clearly, she was so kind before. After gathering my emotions, I arrived at the place Loretta Simpson rented off campus. She had traded her large house for this old and shabby one for the convenience of her part-time job. The once proud daughter of heaven had fallen from grace. It was hard for anyone to accept such a drastic change. But Loretta Simpson wasn't pretentious. She helped me clean the place up nicely and kept it tidy. Although it's a bit small, it feels solid. She leaned against me, looking adorably obedient. At that moment, I secretly vowed never to let her suffer again. Now, I find it amusing. In fact, my first meeting with Loretta Simpson wasn't in college. It was when I was 10 years old. Loretta Simpson came to the orphanage with her parents to do charity work. That day, She wore a princess dress, looking as exquisite as a little fairy. They brought a lot of food to share with the children at the orphanage. Since I was already older, I stood a bit farther back, waiting for the younger kids to finish before stepping up. Unexpectedly, Loretta Simpson noticed me. "Why aren't you going up front?" Back then, I was silent and sensitive. I just glanced at her and didn't say a word. Seeing this, she didn't say anything else but took my hand and dropped a candy into my palm. "Here, if you want something, you have to fight for it yourself." After saying that, she was called away by her family. That phrase lingered in my heart ever since, and that piece of candy accompanied me through every moment when I felt I could no longer hold on. So when I first saw her in college, I reached out, but it led to nothing, and I accepted it. Later, she approached me again, and I felt ecstatic, biting the hook without hesitation. Loretta Simpson probably hadn't been back in a long time. When I opened the door, a cloud of dust hit me in the face. I told her about the experiment with my mentor, and she thought I wouldn't return. She probably figured I wouldn't check up on her and knew I never used those apps, so she acted so recklessly. I chuckled self-deprecatingly. Just as I sat on the couch, my phone buzzed with messages. It was from my mentor. "Have you thought about going abroad? I finally managed to arrange this for you. If the experiment succeeds, this will be your capital. Don't worry about the money. I've already applied for funding from the school. Such opportunities are rare." Looking at my phone, my eyes began to moisten again. My mentor is a research fanatic, absorbed in his studies, oblivious to the politics of the school. The only reason I was able to join the senior research team was that he recognized my talent in this area and, against all odds, insisted I join. He had mentioned going abroad more than once, and each time I said I would think about it. I was mostly worried about Loretta Simpson. She was the one I couldn't stop thinking about. But now I had nothing to worry about. After replying to my mentor's message, I felt a sudden calmness wash over me. First, I posted a message on the campus wall, saying that I would no longer be taking any orders. Then, I sent a message to Loretta Simpson, telling her that I was waiting for her in my rental apartment. Loretta didn't reply, so I stubbornly waited on the couch until dawn. I took one last look at this house filled with sweet memories. After today, everything about Loretta Simpson would no longer be my concern. As soon as I arrived at the school gate, several classmates who had been waiting for me started taking pictures. They probably saw what I posted on the campus wall. This time I couldn't hold back. I walked up to the students taking photos and said, "Either delete it, or I'll call the police." I watched him delete the backup before turning to leave. Just as I turned around, I heard the disdainful voices of the photographers. "What are you pretending for, you idiot?" I ignored them and headed straight to the lab. The experiment was nearing its end and was going smoothly so far. After a day of not checking my phone, I finally opened it to find over a dozen missed calls, some from Loretta Simpson and others from unknown numbers. I frowned, and just as I was about to call back, an unknown number called again. I picked up the phone, and a rough male voice came through. "Are you Isaiah Clark? Loretta Simpson is in my hands. If you want to get her back, bring $5 million. This girl is quite a catch. If you dare to call the police, I will..." Before I could process what was happening, the call was already disconnected. Then I received a video from the other side, showing Loretta bound and crying, begging me to save her. The Simpson group had a wide range of influence. Even if they weren't bankrupt, they had plenty of enemies. Loretta had experienced 2 kidnappings as a child, but she was eventually found by the Simpson family. So at first, I didn't think this was a hoax. I was just an ordinary person, encountering something like this for the first time. I couldn't help but feel a bit panicked. But soon, I calmed down again. The Simpson family wasn't bankrupt, so $5 million wasn't a big deal for them. Without bothering to change my shoes, I ran out of the lab. I was drenched in sweat from the anxiety. Unfortunately, it was rush hour, and I couldn't get a taxi. I held my phone, pacing anxiously. Then I suddenly saw the page I had opened before answering the call. It was a recent post from Alex Lawrence. "I found the latest way to play this game, so stay tuned." The accompanying picture showed Loretta tied to a chair, winking at the camera with one eye. I abruptly stopped running and slumped onto a bus seat, chuckling self-deprecatingly. I couldn't tell if I felt disappointed or numb. I just knew that at this moment, the little Loretta Simpson in my heart had also vanished. I recalled the conversation I overheard at the bar yesterday. They truly thought I would be toyed with. If I hadn't discovered that post, it might have really turned out that way. But not anymore. I wiped my sweaty forehead and turned back to the dorm. Sure enough, as I passed a few classmates, they all looked at me with a mix of pity and intrigue. Even my roommates were surprised when I got back. I knew they had commented on those posts, so it wasn't surprising that they had seen the latest one. I ignored them, silenced my phone, put on my headphones, and began studying. By 11 that night, I opened my phone again. Messages from Loretta Simpson popped up one after another. Isaiah, help me, help me. They're going to beat me to death. It hurts so much, Isaiah. I can't hold on anymore. I suddenly remembered when Loretta had tricked me into thinking her family had gone bankrupt. She had been blocked on the road by creditors after work and had said something similar. That day, I had already missed curfew, so I jumped out of the third-floor bathroom window. Ignoring my sprained ankle, I ran all the way there. Loretta had repeatedly warned me not to call the police. I'm afraid they'll retaliate against you. You've already helped me so much. I don't want to drag you down. At that time, I had felt so soft-hearted. Ultimately, I had scared those people away with a knife. Looking back now, it felt ridiculous. Those were desperate criminals. How could they possibly be afraid of my tiny fruit knife? I had simply been deceived by my own heroism. I sighed and replied to Loretta's messages. If they beat you to death, I will go collect your body. Then I washed up and went to bed. The first time I saw Loretta was in the school cafeteria. She had exaggerated makeup that made her look like she had been injured, and her eyes were red. Surrounding her were several classmates, who looked over at her with feigned concern. She walked straight up to me. Isaiah, you finally came. I no longer comforted her as I did before. I silently watched her performance. Stop pretending. I already know everything. She paused slightly, seemingly confused. Are you angry? Angry that I didn't reply to your messages that day. That night, I was taken away. They weren't human. They were animals. Do you know what they did to me? They had a knife. She sobbed and cried incessantly, until I placed my phone on the table and said, I've seen the posts. Her crying abruptly stopped. She raised an eyebrow and wiped away non-existent tears. This is really boring. Let's break up. Oh, and don't forget to delete all my photos. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to sue you for violating my portrait rights. After saying that, I left without looking back. From then on, I said goodbye to a belief that had lasted over a decade. That evening, I found a lawyer to draft a warning letter. Most of my photos on the forum had already been deleted. In the following days, I helped finish up the experiments, wrote papers, and prepared to go abroad. It had been a long time since I paid attention to news about Loretta Simpson. I only occasionally heard their gossip in the dorm. I heard that the Simpson and Lawrence families were planning a marriage. I didn't feel much, but somehow, after that day, I kept seeing the two of them around campus. It was as if they were doing it on purpose, instantly elevating from good friends to a couple in love. Wherever they went, they held hands, acting all lovey-dovey. It wasn't my business, but whenever they saw me, they would come looking for trouble. Because when I was with Loretta Simpson, I had given all my savings to him. So every day, I could only afford the cheapest meals with my meager savings. The two of them, who usually didn't eat at school, frequently visited the cafeteria. That day, just as I finished getting my food, Alex Lawrence blocked my way. Hey, poor student, is this all you're eating? How pathetic. I ignored him and was about to sidestep him to eat at another table. Alex turned on a speaker and began to play a recording on loop. Your eyes are like stars, so bright they seem to speak. I saw you again today, and you're still as vibrant and radiant. We're together now, something I never even dared to dream about. Don't worry, I'll treat you well. When I'm with you, I always feel insecure, as if there's something between us, but I just can't bear to leave you." Hearing this, I stiffened and turned around. The volume was loud, and students gathered around, either stopping to watch or just enjoying the spectacle, breaking into laughter. My face turned paler by the second. Loretta Simpson stood next to Alex, looking dazed as if she didn't know what was happening. But after a moment, she returned to normal, wearing a hint of sarcasm. All these were secrets I had buried deep inside, now laid bare before the public. This was something I had been documenting for many years. It was my affection for Loretta Simpson, as well as things I couldn't express because of my insecurities. But now they were casually saying it out loud. "Look how passionate Isaiah Clarke is, pining in secret. You're not stalking your goddess, are you? How creepy. But someone as poor as you must be dying to be with Loretta Simpson, right? You must be thrilled when you heard her family went bankrupt." Alex looked at me with disdain. "But Loretta and I are about to get engaged. No matter how happy you are, you'll only be able to look up at us in the future." Saying this, Alex raised the hands they were holding. "And you, the bastard who came from an orphanage, no one to take care of you." I actually had a pretty good idea why Alex always targeted me. I was first in my major when I entered, and Alex happened to be second. He had also wanted to join the professor's research project, but the professor only chose me. And then there was Loretta. She probably didn't even know that Alex had liked her for a long time. I leaned closer to Alex and whispered something in his ear. He immediately snapped, grabbing a tray and swinging it at my head. I turned aside, letting it hit my shoulder instead. At the same time, I held his arm and flipped him over onto his back. He was caught off guard by my sudden move and quickly reacted to fight back. I unleashed all the anger I had bottled up over the past period, throwing punch after punch. Do the poor always have to be mocked and compared to the rich? I didn't understand their mentality. The chaos finally stopped when the police arrived. We were both taken away for questioning. Since Alex struck first, coupled with the things posted online, the Lawrence family had to pay to silence me. When I left the police station, Loretta was waiting for me at the door. She looked down, but when she saw me, she smiled as if nothing had happened. Just as I was about to walk past her, she called out to me, "Isaiah." I didn't respond, wanting to walk away, but unexpectedly, she grabbed my arm. "Let's talk." I pulled her hand away. "No, we have nothing to talk about." Loretta's pretty face showed a hint of dissatisfaction. "Isaiah, I won't come looking for you again. You'd better not regret it." Well, the old me would certainly not have rejected her. After all, she was the one I had liked for 10 years. "I won't regret it." With that, I went straight back to school. As soon as I arrived at the dorm, my phone rang. "Isaiah, how are things with your goddess?" On the other end was my sister Celia Flores from the orphanage, who had gone abroad to study and stayed there to work. Due to the time difference, we didn't contact each other often. She was the first girl from the orphanage to get into college and the first to go abroad. Once she was able, she frequently donated to the orphanage and was the one who supported my education. I was also chasing after her footsteps, trying to improve myself. We broke up. I didn't elaborate on what happened, brushing it off lightly. "Oh, you finally got together. So what happened?" I didn't say anything. She was the only one in the orphanage who knew I liked Loretta Simpson. Seeing that I was in a bad mood, she didn't say anything more. "It's probably better this way. Her family stocks are unstable right now, and their products have issues. The preparations have already been made here in America. By the way, I heard that their newly released product seems to be somewhat related to your research." After just a couple of sentences, she got busy ending the call. Then she transferred some money to me. "Make sure to eat well and take care of yourself." I felt a wave of gratitude. After everything with Loretta Simpson, I hadn't felt kindness in a long time. Putting down my phone, I started focusing on my study abroad plans again. However, recently, it seemed like Loretta was deliberately blocking me. No matter where I went, I could see her figure. Even Alex Lawrence had disappeared. After experiencing betrayal, I was no longer the same as before. That day, just as I stepped out of the lab, I received a call from the hospital. The principal's mother had fallen and was now in the hospital. The principal's mother was getting old, and her fall was serious. She could only lie in bed now. When she saw me, she felt like she was causing me trouble. I'm getting old and useless. Who knows how long I'll be lying here? The kids in the orphanage are still waiting for me to go back. With a sigh, she said this. But I'm here, aren't I? Don't worry about your recovery. I'll visit more often these days. Before I started dating Loretta, I used to go back regularly to help. Since being with her, I hadn't returned in a long time. The principal's mother wanted to say something, but her eyes brightened when she saw the person behind me. Hey, I was wondering why you hadn't been back lately. Are you in a relationship? I turned around and saw Loretta holding a bunch of supplements standing behind me. I turned back. No, she's just an ordinary classmate. Hello, principal's mother. These are for you. They're good for bone recovery. I've already contacted the principal. They'll move you to a different room soon with a professional nurse. Don't worry about your recovery. I, along with Isaiah, will visit the orphanage frequently. The principal's mother's gaze shifted back and forth between us. Loretta was sweet-talking her and made her very happy. Many times I wanted to speak, but I had no chance. Finally, in the evening, the principal's mother urged me to take Loretta out for dinner, and that's when I finally had the opportunity to ask her what she really wanted. I can't play around with you rich girls. If you want to have fun, find someone else. How much did the things you bought cost? I'll transfer you the money. Loretta seemed hurt by my words, looking very sad. So, is that how I am in your eyes? I just wanted to take responsibility for my mistakes. Is that wrong? After saying this, she ran off. I stared at her retreating figure in a daze. Could it be that I was the one in the wrong? After that day, I didn't see Loretta for a long time. The next time I saw her was at the orphanage. I brought a lot of things to distribute to the children, but Loretta had gotten there before me. When I arrived, she was already helping in the kitchen. She was as skilled as if she did this often. Even the older kids in the orphanage liked her a lot. The older kids teased us, and she didn't refute them. Loretta suggested that we take a walk together. For the children's sake, I agreed. All the way, she deliberately slowed her pace, trying hard to find topics to talk about. She apologized for what happened before. That was all Alex's idea. I didn't want to do it, but you know his character. Actually, I'm not as glamorous as I seem. I want to be carefree like the kids, but the burden on me is too heavy. She smiled, but it was a pale smile. Then she shared a lot with me. She had a younger brother who had just turned 10 this year, so she had to pave the way for her brother. I was born to be used. I've been used to it for so many years. You are my exception. I couldn't help but show a pained expression, and Loretta was taken aback, then spoke her feelings even more sincerely. I couldn't help but chuckle coldly in my heart. How foolish did Loretta think I was to still believe her words? Because my mentor's experiment had been very successful. Many companies were eager to acquire it, but the mentor insisted on not selling and needed to continue the research. It just so happened that the Simpson Group was interested in the results of this experiment. Plus, they had internal issues and were waiting for this special project to turn things around. The Lawrence family was also facing problems lately. Loretta was either intentionally or unintentionally getting close to me for this reason. The Lawrence family also needed the Simpson family to recover and provide them with financial support. That's why Alex hadn't shown up in front of me for days. Sure enough, that night, Loretta began to reveal her true intentions. By the way, Isaiah, your experiment was successful, right? I haven't congratulated you yet. I've booked a restaurant. Let's celebrate together tomorrow. Without thinking, I refused. I now understood the gap between us. Those unrealistic thoughts had been crushed completely. However, I didn't expect to see her in the lab the next day. At that time, I was just about to go find my mentor with some documents when I saw Loretta walking out with a man. The mentor's expression was not good. He only slightly recovered when he saw me. Isaiah, help me send the guests off. After saying that, he slammed the door shut. The man looked at me, a flash of disdain in his eyes, quickly replaced by a feigned politeness. "So you are Isaiah? Quite the young achiever. This is my father." Loretta stood beside me and introduced him. "I should have met you earlier, but I've been too busy recently. Now that we've met, Uncle, please let me treat you to a meal." I waved the documents in my hand. "The mentor still has matters to discuss with me. You're free to do as you please." With that, I made a gesture inviting them to leave. Loretta's expression soured as she tugged at my sleeve. "This is my father." I nodded. "So what? He was just a profit-driven businessman." Seeing my refusal, Mr. Simpson's expression grew even darker. "Nowadays, young people think they're something special. Even their tempers are inflated. Young man, I advise you to be a bit more humble." With that, Mr. Simpson waved his hand and left. Loretta shot me an unhappy glance before following him. After that day, I blocked Loretta and began to prepare to go abroad with all my effort. It wasn't until I submitted my documents that I finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was on this day that Loretta came to find me again. Her face looked terrible. I had heard a bit about her family's situation lately but hadn't paid much attention. Now all my thoughts were focused on myself, and that feeling gave me peace of mind. She stopped me. "Isaiah, can you persuade your mentor? The Simpson Group has so many people waiting for a meal. We just need this one project to turn things around. Don't you like me? If I marry you, how about it?" I pushed her away. "That's up to the mentor. I'm just a poor student with no rights or obligations to help you. And Loretta, I liked the 10-year-old you who held candy, not the you who can do anything for profit now. I don't like you anymore. You have no leverage." With that, I turned and walked away. In the following days, Loretta still stubbornly came to find me, but I ignored her completely. During this time, Alex also came to see me a few times, still with the same disdainful tone, but lacking strength, like a tiger with its teeth pulled. He was no threat at all. Without the support of a superior family background, Alex was no different from an ordinary person. Once the school approved the exchange program, I finally felt relieved. At the same time, the headmaster's mother had returned to the orphanage to recuperate. When she saw me, there was a hint of hope in her eyes. I knew she was asking about Loretta. "We broke up a while ago. We're not suitable for each other." The headmaster's mother sighed. "That girl doesn't look like a child from an ordinary family. I was worried you might go astray, but it's good now, you're grounded." I smiled to reassure her. On my way back, Celia sent me a message. "The Simpson family is really failing. They've declared bankruptcy abroad. Life is unpredictable. And now there's a pile of issues to deal with. Just keep your distance from Loretta. Don't get dragged into it." After replying, I saw the news. The Simpson family was already a house of cards. It wasn't until I had everything settled that I learned on the day my mentor took me out for a meal that the Simpsons had collapsed. It was also revealed that the Simpson family was involved in bribery, and now Mr. Simpson had been detained. Mrs. Simpson took the youngest son of the Simpson family and fled abroad overnight. Only Loretta was left in the country, burdened with the debts. It was just as she had said. The past boomerang had indeed struck her. And the Lawrence family was also in a precarious situation. What once felt like a dream had now all come true. Many who had anonymously mocked them on campus were now saying, "Look, they used to toy with Isaiah, and now everything has come true. Isaiah is really in a bad spot. It feels so good to see those I didn't like finally come to ruin. Honestly, I'm really enjoying this. Everyone's just here for the show. I want to see something big. What if Loretta goes to find Isaiah now? The idea upstairs is so bold. I love it. I bet a spicy stick that Isaiah will act the same. After all, he's had a crush on her for 10 years. That's not certain. I heard the Simpson family wanted to buy their research results. He didn't help at all. Besides, he's going abroad soon. Who would give up their future for a woman who deceived them? These were the same people who once idolized Alex and Loretta. I found it amusing that they wasted time on others. I paid them no mind. But Loretta really came to find me just like before. The same act was being replayed, but this time it was for real. Isaiah, this time it's genuine. I don't know what to do. I can only come to you. Let's be good like before. Look, this is all the stuff you bought for me. I really like it. Loretta held up a pink bracelet. That was the first money I earned from working a summer job after graduating high school. I hadn't intended to give it away. I just wanted to keep it as a memento. I gave it to her on our first day together. At the time, she had dismissed it. I thought she must have thrown it away long ago. Since she hadn't tossed it, I'd throw it away for her. I snatched the bracelet and tossed it straight into the trash can. Loretta looked at me in disbelief. She even prepared to pick it up. I watched this scene and couldn't help but laugh. Can you please not do this? I'm being sincere. I've never felt my parents' love since I was little. It's not easy to feel love from you. So why do you have to push me away? I smiled coldly. A young lady from a complete family who has never known what it's like to be poor shouldn't play the victim. If she took a look at those who can barely afford a meal, she would realize how fortunate she is. I understand the saying that a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Loretta Simpson, do you take me for a fool? If you had any self-respect, you wouldn't come looking for me. That night, the campus wall erupted with sharp sounds. See? I told you Isaiah Clarke wouldn't agree. Oh my, Isaiah, you've toughened up. Will there be a husband-chasing funeral behind this? Loretta Simpson goes abroad for love, and in the end, they successfully get together. Don't let your imagination run wild upstairs. I was even more speechless. The best way to deal with this kind of situation is to stay calm. Eventually, everyone will forget. After that day, school was on break, and I prepared to go abroad. As soon as I arrived overseas, I met Celia Flores, whom I hadn't seen in years, and she was still very warm. After catching up with my old friend, I threw myself into my studies. In my third month abroad, the Lawrence family announced bankruptcy. This didn't cause much of a stir, as it had been anticipated. After that, I rarely heard news from back home. However, when I first arrived abroad, the dean's wife mentioned that Loretta Simpson had come looking for me several times. The young girl didn't look well. I wonder what happened at home. Every time she came, she was disheartened to hear you weren't back. I didn't say anything. I had long since cooled my fiery heart towards her. And since I didn't have many friends back home, I heard even less about Loretta Simpson. Many things abroad were quite novel. Although I was a bit uncomfortable at first, I grew to love the current pace. I dedicated myself to self-improvement and finally completed my studies 2 years later. I returned home 4 years later, and by then I had my own team. My mentor's lab had new discoveries and asked me to come back to help. Of course, without hesitation, I packed my bags and set off. As soon as I arrived back home, I received news about a class reunion from my university. It was sent by the class monitor. We haven't had a reunion in so many years without you. Since you're finally back, you must come. This left me speechless. At the reunion, many classmates were already married, with only a few continuing their studies. But everyone seemed to know a lot about me. They immediately congratulated me on winning an award, saying I was successful. Fortunately, you didn't get involved with the Simpson family. Otherwise, you'd still be helping Loretta Simpson pay off debts. I saw her a few days ago. She's now working at a KTV as a hostess. She's in a tough spot. Her mother took all the money and left her with no way out. By the way, have you heard about Alex Lawrence? Ever since the Lawrence family went bankrupt, he hasn't been seen. Rumor has it he's long gone, chased by enemies for debts, and jumped into a river out of despair. The young master just can't handle pressure. Then they congratulated me for being young and accomplished, not being tied down by romantic entanglements. I just smiled and said nothing. Hearing no news about Loretta Simpson for years left me unfazed. Until the reunion ended, I received a phone call. The girl on the other end had a sweet voice. "Baby, when are you coming back? We've been apart for 28 hours, and I miss you so much." I smiled gently, my heart wrapped in sweetness.